Hey everyone.
Hey there.
Today we're actually talking about free cash for college and the fact that there's still financial aid available here in the state of California. My name is Michael Lemus.
And I'm Judith Gutierrez.
And this is Financial Paid. And today we actually have two wonderful guests, Edwin, who goes by Eddy, Chikuwa, and Guadalupe Delgado, who are actually representing the Cash for College and CalSOAP programs that the California Student Aid Commission administers.
Yes, and thank you both so much for being here today. Let's go ahead and just learn a little bit more about both of you. I think maybe we can start with you, Eddy, if you want to share a bit about yourself, your role, your work at CSAC, and just a little bit about your background.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me here. Hey everybody, my name is Edwin Chikuwa, go by Eddy as they said, and I'm the Cash for College coordinator at the California Student Aid Commission. Now, a little bit about my background is I actually immigrated from Zimbabwe to the United States at the age of 14, and my mother was undocumented. Luckily, we actually were able to get citizenship, and so I've had to navigate some complex financial aid issues throughout my term. So it's an honor, it's always a pleasure to be able to give back what was given to me, and that's why I really enjoyed this role being a Cash for College coordinator.
Thank you so much for that, Eddy.
Hi everyone, my name is Guadalupe Delgado. I am the director of the California Student Opportunity and Access Program here in Sacramento County. I love my job. Today you're going to hear a little bit about what I do. One of my favorite things about my job is that I get to help students reach their college goals by applying for financial aid.
Awesome. Well, thank you both again for that background and introduction. So, Eddy, you do serve as CSAC's statewide Cash for College coordinator. Can you tell us a little bit about what the Cash for College program is?
Awesome. Okay. So how to put this simply, because there's nothing simple about financial aid. So I guess this is why the Cash for College program exists.
That's true.
So the Cash for College program, it is a statewide program, and our goal is to make sure that students, families, guardians can have help to fill out their financial aid applications. Now, some of the applications that we focus on, free application for federal student aid, that is the FAFSA. That is for permanent residents and U.S. citizens. And then we also focus on the California Dream Act application, that is the CADA, and that is for undocumented students. And then we also focus on the CHAFE grant for foster youth. So with a lot of these different applications, a quick summary is that you should be filling out one between the FAFSA or the CADA, and then if you're a foster youth, obviously you should fill out the CHAFE grant in addition to that. And so our goal, go around the state, help students with it, and yeah, that's what the Cash for College program is all about.
Yeah, thank you for that. So only fill out one application, the FAFSA or the California Dream Act.
Exactly. Only fill out one of those, and then if you're a foster youth, fill the CHAFE grant in addition to one of those applications.
Thank you for clarifying that. We've had a lot of questions from students, and we can probably get into this a little more later, but some students don't know what the applications are. They hear about our Cal Grant programs, and they're asking, how do I apply for that Cal Grant program? How do I apply for this? So I'm very glad that you're both here today to kind of talk a little bit about what that application process really looks like.
Awesome. And while we're on that topic, so Eddy, it's very clear that the Cash for College program has the potential to reach a lot of students and families. When you're talking about your day-to-day work or even just in the bigger picture sense, how does Cash for College actually reach students and their families and help them apply for financial aid?
We reach them in multiple different ways. So we do everything. Like right now we're doing this podcast, so hopefully y'all listening in. So this is one way. Another way is we send out postcards to every high school senior to say, hey, please apply. On social media, we're pretty active on social media. I would actually give y'all credit, Judith and Michael, because y'all run a lot of our social media.
Good job.
So yeah, no, it is a pretty great job, right? They're doing a really great job. So we know we've been reaching out, social media ads, anything and anywhere where we can meet students. Right now, we're still figuring out TikTok. Trying to figure out who's going to do the dancing on TikTok. Not I, but if we have to, if that makes y'all watch financial aid applications, we'll do it. But yeah, we just reach out in all different ways. And also, we also reach out to high school administrators, as well as college counselors, all these different individuals. So lots of ways to outreach.
Correct.
Yeah, definitely a lot of stakeholders included. And so I think that's exactly why we have expanded our outreach on social media platforms. We're talking about populations as young as high school students and students being introduced to the financial aid process. Have you learned any TikTok dances yourself as we continue to expand?
Not really.
I am totally kidding. That was just a follow-up question. But yeah, so Guadalupe, can you explain, just for our listeners, we have this statewide bird's eye view perspective as to what the Cash for College program is here in California. And you mentioned a little bit about your role in a CalSOAP. So what, can you tell our listeners a bit about what CalSOAP is?
Sure, briefly, there are 16 CalSOAP projects throughout the state. All of them are funded by the California Student Aid Commission. All of them have pretty much the same goal, which is to improve the flow of information of post-secondary education and financial aid to students. Here in Sacramento County, our CalSOAP, the one that I direct, also happens to be the regional coordinating agency for Cash for College workshops. So I work very closely with Eddy. That means that we are tasked with organizing local Cash for College workshops. We work with local school districts in helping them host Cash for College workshops at their site. We also partner with our local community colleges, our local CSU, our local UC, to provide expert help to those workshops that we are hosting, at least here in Sacramento County. But that is the same across the state. My CalSO partners throughout the state also have the same setup with the guidance of Eddy and the support of CSAC as well.
That's awesome, Guadalupe. It's very clear that you must be busy with all the work that you're doing. Same goes to you, Eddy.
Absolutely, absolutely.
There's definitely always a lot of work when it comes to getting the word out about financial aid to our students and their families. So when it comes to CalSOAP, you mentioned there's 16 across the state, which is amazing. How do you get the word out about CalSOAP? Because I wish that when I was actually in high school, that I would have known about Cash for College, that I would have known about CalSOAP. It's clear that the two programs work very closely together. And as we expand upon our outreach, our social media, and what we're doing with these wonderful programs, what are ways that Cash for College and CalSOAP work together to actually get that word out?
Correct.
Great question.
And I think the key is that we have regional coordinating agencies. I think that is key because each region is responsible for sort of spreading the word in their own region, as opposed to Eddy having to be tasked to spreading the word throughout the state. So here locally, we work with our local school districts to make sure that they're spreading the word to their own students and their own families. We, of course, just like Eddy mentioned, we also use social media quite a bit. In Sacramento CalSOAPs, for example, we use Instagram. We do a lot of raffles, we do giveaways to encourage student interaction. But truthfully, we use our local resources, meaning our local network of colleges and universities, of other outreach programs that exist in local colleges to help spread the word of our Cash for College workshops that are currently happening throughout our area. I also want to mention that we also partner a lot with community agencies, and those have also been instrumental in spreading the word to students about the workshops.
Thank you so much for that, Guadalupe. In fact, I did want to follow up and ask, so this has been a local effort for years, correct? The Cash for College programs through the CalSOAP consortiums across the state. And Eddy, just to clarify, or if you could clarify, now we've been starting these statewide efforts as well because of the virtual environment we've been forced into. Is that correct? And can you explain a little bit more?
Yeah, that is absolutely correct. So I don't need to remind everybody like how bad COVID is. So we all know how bad COVID is. And you can imagine for a program that is about in-person workshops and in-person assistance, how damaging going virtual could be. So we looked at that and we're like, okay, how do we handle this? And I love the optimism at CSAC with our partners. We said, okay, we can transition this program. And I know we worked closely with Guadalupe because we were experimenting different types of
models,
workshops.
correct, different types of models to use, correct.
Exactly, going back and forth like, okay, this one works, this one doesn't.
Yeah.
And what eventually we ended up saying was, we love what our local Cash for College workshops are doing. They're pretty effective. But we also want, as CSAC, to support those local efforts. So the way we got around that was by establishing what are called statewide Cash for College webinars. And the idea behind this is, you know, you can never mimic that in-person interaction, but you can get close.
Right.
The way we got close was by saying we will answer questions, we'll give a presentation,
live.
We'll answer questions live. Via Q&A, and then we will also, if you call us during the webinar, we'll pick up your phone and we'll walk you through your specific individualized issue. So it was pretty effective. People really loved them. We thought we were going to do them once, but it looks like I got myself more work. So now we're bringing them back again this year, and we're getting a lot of assistance from our local CalSOAPs and RCOs, regional coordinating organizations and agencies who are assisting us with that.
I have to say that I agree with Eddy. I've been working with CSAC for over 15 years now, and this is the first time CSAC has direct workshops for students. As you know, the organization has always done training for experts, training for counselors, for CalSOAPs. So this is the first time, and I also commend CSAC for sort of jumping on the bandwagon and being able to provide services for students. Our local staff worked as well. We all worked the workshops. I presented in Spanish. I think they have been very successful, and I really do hope that they continue.
Yeah, no, and I definitely don't want to miss the opportunity to thank our training team
Absolutely.
at CSAC. Who
Yes.
plays a
Yes.
big
Yes.
role
Yes.
in
Absolutely.
helping get these together.
Absolutely.
But our own executive director, Marlene Garcia, once said, a crisis is a bad thing to waste. And I always, that always stuck with me. And so it's sounding like we definitely took the opportunity of, having these in-person workshops that maybe students and families who don't have the resources to attend were missing out on. And usually those families are the
Yes.
ones who need the support the
Yes.
most. So now that we're in this virtual space, I almost feel like we've actually seen an increase in
Absolutely.
engagement, and we've been able to reach
Absolutely.
students by just having them click on a Zoom link and join.
Absolutely. I can say locally in our region that has absolutely been the case. In fact, this year, this academic year, many of our schools have started already in-person learning, but our local Cash for College coalition made a decision to continue our Cash for College workshops virtual. Why? Because exactly what you said, Judith. We saw a lot more engagement in the virtual world. We were able to reach areas, and I mean geographical areas that maybe we couldn't in the past. We also are able to host 2 workshops in the same night, and therefore increasing the amount of workshops available for families. One also other little bit that has helped in this virtual world is that CalSoap also has many student assistants, student workers that are real experts in financial aid, and many of them are away at college. So this virtual world has been allowed us to get their expert help while they're away, and they can still log into our workshops and provide expert help. And I also will say that our local college financial aid experts, I feel like they've been more willing to join our workshops and support the workshops in a virtual environment. So for example, this week we had a workshop that was over 100 families from one high school alone. And we had over 20 experts on help the families. So I think they have been very good things about doing our workshops virtually.
And I'll even bounce off of that because it's so much easier to just be in your room and just be presenting than it is to drive to different locations.
Yeah,
and
you're
fly.
more willing to volunteer, to provide help, to correct.
The one thing I will say though about the virtual environment, and this is going out to all the students that are listening, is before we could make students fill out the survey, because there's an end of workshop survey at the end of each Cash for College, and I'm only bringing this up because I want to plug these surveys. Please, students, fill them out. And now what students are doing is that once the workshop is over, they just log off. It's like, no, we really need you to fill out the survey. And so we're being nice. We're offering scholarships. So please just fill out the survey. Like, I cannot emphasize this enough. Like, that's the one thing I have upset about the virtual environment. But we're getting there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a quick survey just to help us gather information around the impact of these workshops and if they are actually working. But the numbers don't lie. We've been seeing a lot of numbers fluctuating in the application submission rates.
And with that being said, I'd actually like to go a little bit deeper into what you mentioned around just accessibility and reaching more students. I love what you actually mentioned, Guadalupe, that you've actually been able to reach more people in this virtual format. I know we've seen that through our webinars and how we're actually able to reach students and families, I mean, really across California. From really big cities to rural areas. It's very important that we're reaching these students and their families. So when it comes to this new virtual hybrid format, we're almost 2 years into this pandemic. There's a lot going on. And to your point, Guadalupe, a lot more schools are back in person. And so when it comes to these workshops and the webinars, why do you think it's so important to continue having that mix? As we start to transition back into in-person things, why do you think that's so important?
You mean a mix of both?
Mix of virtual and in-person, even after moving through the pandemic itself.
I think, and I don't know if we're going to talk about it a little more, but we've talked so far about the great things about the virtual world or the virtual workshops, but we all know that one of the things that didn't work in virtual workshops was our AB 540 Dreamer population. They did not join the virtual workshops, as those students applying for the California Dream Act did not join. And so for that population, we definitely needed to kind of switch it around and provide more one-on-one help and helping them join the workshops. And if there weren't, then making sure that we have the resources available to help them one-on-one. But that's one of the things that I think both Eddy and I get asked a lot is, can people get one-on-one help during a virtual workshop, right? And the answer is yes. During the first year, we tried, like Eddy mentioned, we tried various models. We played with various models of virtual workshops and how they worked. And I feel like it took a year to kind of really get it together. Correct. And this year, we just are offering one model, and that model includes having one-on-one help. In this workshop I mentioned earlier, there were 100 families, and any family, I think every single family who chose or asked, requested one-on-one help was able to get it. So the trick is to having someone who will be the lead at that workshop, right, and to assign that family or student with an expert, put him in a Zoom room, and that family gets one-on-one, private, confidential help, filling out their California Dream Act or FAFSA. So yes, I don't think it's all perfect, I think, but I think overall we have been able to reach a larger number of students.
Yeah. No, that's definitely very important, that privacy piece and that option to have one-on-one support. You know, these workshops are made available and they're open to so many students and families just so that we don't turn anyone away. Even when we have, I guess, themed, for lack of better word, workshops where we're, you know, for example, bilingual Cash for College workshops, those are Spanish and English, but a lot of people assume that it's Spanish only. So, you know, it's a good opportunity to just make sure that we are inclusive of larger populations.
Great point. Yes.
But having that one-on-one piece is very important. And I'm glad you've been able to make it work in this virtual environment. So I did want to also kind of jump in a little bit and talk about the recent launch we had, because I just realized this isn't the first time we've seen each other in person either. So for those of us listening in only, we are in the studio today filming. And if you're watching us, we are very happy to be all in the same room, of course, taking precaution. But we, you know, at least speaking for myself, we were able to get kind of exposed to what this in-person Cash for College workshop looks like. We saw, you know, professionals from UC Davis come in, from CalSO, from the community colleges, helping these high school students just get their FSA IDs ready or start the California Dream Act application even. So what had that felt like going into or returning to that space?
Well, I think it was exciting for all of us, right? Because it was the first time that we would do an in-person workshop. For those of you listening, we held our launch for Cash for College at one of the Sacramento County local high schools, and it was in person. There was a group, about 60 students, I would say. All of us here were there supporting the students. So I think it was exciting for all of us to be there, to see students again, helping them one-on-one again. So yeah, it was kind of exciting.
I 100% agree. I mean, I could tell like everybody was so excited because everybody kept on going to the students. Do you need help? Do you need help? Do you need help? This was like, no, we're good. We're good. We got it. And so like it was a really exciting thing for everybody, feeling that energy. You know, just being in that environment was really exciting, and knowing that, okay, we'll be back again to make sure y'all complete the applications. So really great time all around. Exactly.
Which reminds me that many of our other CalSO partners throughout the state will be doing hybrid models. So other than the virtual workshops that we're holding, some of them are holding in person, some of them are holding both at the same time. So for example, there is a virtual workshop happening, and there are some students that are being helped in person at the school site by some volunteers. So sort of breaking up the numbers so there's not too many people all in one place. So across the state, there are going to be hybrid workshops as well.
Yeah, and I just want to quickly touch on, I mean, I think that event was amazing, and to Eddy's point, the energy was there, and it was so clear as we're asking the students, like, hey, do you need help? And they're like, all right, y'all, like, we get it. But I think it was also a spirit day for their school, and so it was really cool to see them with their outfits and their shirts, and it really reminds you of just the humanistic, like, energy that we miss, right? Like, just being able to interact with people, and it's nice that we have this virtual format and the mix of programming, because I think speaking to equity, it's super important that we reach students and their families within the ways that they feel comfortable. And that is super important. And so I think it really calls to attention what it is that we're missing, but also the modernization of what can exist and what we can be doing. And so it makes me excited that folks are looking at hybrid models, they're looking at in-person, online, and it really does make a difference because we're able to go ahead and reach more families and more students.
I'm not sure we're going to talk about it, but I know that when students or families look at the go into the Cash for College statewide workshop site and see the list of workshops, they can identify which workshops are virtual. And maybe you might want to speak more about that because But I think that's really important for students and families who are watching to know.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, so pretty much, Guadalupe pretty much explained it. So we gave our website a facelift, right? And the way it works, this is why it's so critical to have partners like Guadalupe who register their workshops in our system. And we do this because it then populates it on a website, which they can go and check out. It is cash4, as in the number 4, college.csac.ca.gov. Like, I know this.
Great job.
Now. Yeah, I know, right? It's all in there now. But you can go check out that website, and then you can click on a workshop. You can also, if you don't know where you want to go, you can look up by zip code, by date, and it'll bring workshops within that specific area on that specific date. And you can click on the description, and that's where you will see in-person or virtual. And for the virtual ones, they should have a link. If the link is not there, you can always email us at cashforcollege@csac.ca.gov.
Correct.
And that's not a number, that's a 4, F-O-R. So slight difference there. So yeah, lots of great new stuff. And just kind of picking up on that hybrid model, it has been pretty effective. I know at the beginning of last year when we were getting into COVID and trying to adjust and figure out how to go about it, a lot of people were not excited about going virtual. But this year, I've noticed a change where people are reaching out to me and saying, no, we like some aspects of virtual. And I think now having that in your toolbox of saying, for this specific population, we should probably go virtual.
Correct.
For that specific population, we should probably go in person. I think that's really effective.
Depending on the need.
Exactly.
That's a really good way of addressing it. So we have been talking about these workshops and the availability of them and the hybrid models that are available. But who would you say these workshops are intended for? What does the audience look like?
Well, here I can speak for Sacramento County Cash for College workshops. They're intended for high school seniors and their families, mainly their parents. Here we host or we organize workshops in the evenings. We're hoping that parents are available in the afternoon and they can join, even if it's virtual, they can join the workshop and kind of help their student complete the applications. So they're local high school seniors and their families, and we host them in the evening so that everybody can join.
And building off of that, so what we realize is I think we're doing a pretty solid job of getting to high school students, right? Yes. And one thing we've been trying to think about here at CSAC is filling the gaps. And so right now, we actually, our next statewide Cash for College webinar, it is directed at formerly incarcerated individuals and youth in the juvenile justice system. Because they, unlike high school seniors, most of them would probably not likely need a parent to fill out that application. Most of them would be what we call independent students. So they just fill it on their own. But they have a lot of questions about financial aid, and there's a lot of intersections within those specific groups and populations. And some of them think, oh, because I was formerly incarcerated, I don't qualify for aid, which is incorrect. So that's why it's super critical that we get that mass message out, because there's like about 200,000 high school seniors across California. But it's also important that we fill in the gaps. We also reach out to not just formerly incarcerated, but parents who have children who want to go back to school. There's financial aid for them. All these different segments.
Foster youth. I know that there is a whole marketing and outreach package just for foster youth. I recently just saw a PowerPoint just for homeless youth or youth that are experiencing homelessness. And of course, we have targeted outreach for our dreamers, our AB 540, our undocumented students. So I think that and then the different languages. Different languages. Locally, we also target our workshops, our flyers, our advertisement. When there will be translating services available, we make sure that the families know that there will be Spanish or Farsi, or here in Sacramento, we have a large Hmong population, so we always, oftentimes we offer Hmong.
So it looks like Eddy actually beat us to busting a myth, which is the last part of our segment, our myth buster. And it looks like for today's episode, a lot of the misinformation we hear and the myths we hear is the FAFSA and the California DREAM Act application takes too long to fill out. And that is incorrect.
It is definitely incorrect. And I was actually one of those students in high school. I'm just like, I don't want to do this because I heard it takes 2 hours to actually fill this thing out. It can honestly take as little as 30 minutes. I think the big tip that we can go ahead and offer to students and their families is if they can get in the same room and actually have those documents ready, they can even go to our website. It's at csac.ca.gov/cash-college, and all the documents that they need to actually fulfill and do the application are there. So it could take a really short amount of time. There is that misinformation. It takes forever. It doesn't. It could be really short. You just need to prepare for it, and we're also,
Preparation is key. If you are completing a FAFSA, make sure you have your federal student aid ID, all the required documents, and really what will make it or break it will be having your parents with you when you're filling it out. And I concur, it will take you 20 to 30 minutes tops. And I type like this. And I still can get a FAFSA done within 20 or 30 minutes. Absolutely. Preparation. Wouldn't you agree?
No, I 100% agree. And just making sure you check all that information. And sometimes we know students might not have all the documentation they need. So you can put in estimates. Just try and make sure you get it in by March 2nd. You can put in those estimates and then come in back and correct. So that's something we typically advise students, get it in as quickly as possible.
Exactly. Well, I think this episode has been a really good reflection of what we just can't remind our listeners and viewers of enough. Is step one is just applying. Apply for the FAFSA or the California Dream Act application, and you might be surprised as to what you're eligible for and what financial aid you could potentially receive to pursue a post-secondary education. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Eddy, and thank you, Guadalupe, for just providing those local and statewide insights.
And thank you, audience, for tuning in and spending some time with us today.
See you next time.
See ya.